Donald Trump has placed around 60 countries in what he calls the worst offenders when it comes to tariffs. A number of them are from the Asia-Pacific region. So let's take a glance at some of these figures. As you can see there, these are pretty significant numbers, a whopping 54% in total for China, which is America's third largest trading partner. Southeast Asian nations are also being slugged with tariffs as high as 49%. And even major allies like Japan and Taiwan haven't been spared. Well, Steve Okun is the CEO of APAC Advisors, and he joins me now from New York. Steve, good morning where you are. Now, we had a trade expert last night who described today as Destruction Day. What are you calling it?
Well, I mean, Donald Trump calls it Liberation Day. I think we can call it Confusion Day because we still don't know exactly where we're going. We know one thing for sure. Donald Trump loves tariffs. That is abundantly clear. We knew that before. We really know it now. But we still don't know, why are all these tariffs on? Is he trying to do this to drive manufacturing to the United States? Is he trying to do this to get other countries to change their behaviors? Is he trying to do it to eliminate the global trading system? So I would call it, in a way, it's tariff confusion day as much as it is tariff certainty day. We at least have numbers now, but this is far from settled.
Yes, I suppose that is a question that will only be answered in months to come. It depends on how each individual country reacts. But, a lot of those countries are in Asia and in the worst offenders list we've just seen there. So what's common among those nations that has Donald Trump putting them in his naughty list?
Not much. I mean, Australia and Singapore, which have FTAs with the United States, which do not have, the United States does not have a trade deficit with Australia or Singapore. They get 10%. So they're on the list, even though they haven't done anything that is in direct opposition to what Donald Trump wants. Now you have other countries that are getting hammered really hard, like Cambodia, which cannot afford the types of tariffs that are going to come at it. So you have the export-driven economies, the Cambodias, Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia, and certainly you put into that category China. They're going to get hit significantly. Then you've got the allies in North Asia, Japan and Korea, also getting significant tariffs. Unclear what they need to do to get off the list. So everyone right now is trying to scramble from a government perspective. What is it that we did and what is it that we can do? And then the businesses and investors are just all watching to see what's coming next, because this isn't the end. There's plenty more tariffs to come.
Yes, and if there are more tariffs to come, at least what are the the key export goods from Asia that will be hit the most for now?
Well, I mean, look, anything that's coming out of China, for sure, like anything that's coming out of China, for sure. A lot of the manufacturing that's coming out of Southeast Asia will be hit. One of the things that you could make the argument why there is a universal tariff effectively of 10% on everybody, including Singapore and Australia, is that because a lot of the goods that go from China to the US are transshipped. So they go and flow over countries like Singapore or Southeast Asia. So that 10% tariff doesn't make sense for Australia, but that 10% tariff is really a tariff on China too. But we don't know that. We don't know what specifically went into these numbers. We have a guess. They're based on 2024 trade surplus data, but it doesn't count trade and services. It doesn't count other things. So everybody's just no clearer today than they were yesterday as to the rationale behind these, other than we got them.
But what might be happening, Steve, is this game of chicken. So who might flinch first? When you look at the two biggest economies in the world, the United States and China, something will have to give at some point. But you've got Donald Trump and Xi Jinping, two so-called strongman leaders. What might happen if we see this battle of attrition play out for the next few months?
Well, I mean, one question is going to be, what is China going to do? And what China could do if China is no longer exporting to the U.S., but China then looks for other markets, and China has excess capacity, so it's going to put its manufactured goods in other countries. Those countries could tariff China. So now you've got China tariffing the U.S. tariffing China back, then Indonesia tariffing China, Malaysia tariffing China, Thailand tariffing China. So now you can have a true global trade war, not just a U.S.-China war, just the U.S. to everyone. So we have to watch what's going to happen there. We have to watch if countries are going to decide to take the case of negotiating against Donald Trump collectively. The only way you can beat Donald Trump is in a collective negotiation. No country has leverage over the United States because of its size. But if the EU and Canada and Japan and Korea were to come together and negotiate as one against the United States, you'd have a different situation. Donald Trump's already warned them against that. He does not want to see that happen because he knows he's worse off. So what are these countries going to give in to that, or are they going to come together collectively? So much has to play out geopolitically, and it's not just bilateral, it's multilateral as well.
Yes, and as you mentioned earlier, a number of Asian countries, Vietnam, Cambodia, China as well, big exporters of a lot of goods to the US. So can you tell me, when will the everyday American, the baker, the car salesman, when will they begin to feel the pinch of higher import costs?
It will come, and the question is how quickly it will come. We saw this coming. Everybody knows how much Donald Trump loves tariffs. Everybody knew for months that April 1st, 2nd was going to be his tariff day. So a lot of shipping was done ahead of time to come into the United States ahead of the tariffs. So there is some excess capacity in warehouses. That will stay at current prices, might go up a little bit. So the question will be, how long will these tariffs last? How quickly can supply chains change to try and get around those tariffs? It might come in a few months, but there is no question inflation is going up in the United States. Consumers are going to be paying more. How quickly will that happen? And what will be, importantly, the political consequences to Donald Trump? And will the market be the one guardrail that actually works? Because right now, there is no guardrail against Donald Trump really destroying the international trading system in a matter of a couple months that took 80 years to construct.
Yeah, well, speaking of the markets, you are in New York, the global financial hub. What's the mood like there at the moment? What have you observed?
I mean, it's certainly not panic. But there is a lot of concern. And when people recognized that Donald Trump was going to do this announcement after markets closed, he did not want the markets open. He wanted to be able to make the announcement when the markets were closed and then try and have the administration explain itself. I haven't seen a really good explanation yet as to the rationale, because there's counter rationales for these tariffs. So yeah, no, you certainly would expect to see the market go down. The question will be, how is this going to play out over a couple days? What are the allies going to do to respond? I mean, you've seen the countries like Australia and Singapore with FTAs have both come out and said, we need to talk to the US. We don't even know why we're on this list. We shouldn't be on this list, yet they are. So how are those answers going to be rebutted? And then this isn't the end. As I said, semiconductors is coming up. Pharmaceuticals is coming up. So those companies might also have to be hit in within those sectors. A lot of concern, a lot of anxiety, more today than there was yesterday. But unfortunately, there's going to probably be more to come down the road.
And as you say, so many scenarios we can expect in the days, weeks, and months to come. Steve Okun in New York, thank you so much for your insights and analysis.
Good to see you again.